So let me just ask you a very blunt question. Do we live in a simulation?
Well, let me say the answer in a little way. I'll hedge it a little bit. My first answer would be if you take evolution by natural selection seriously,
Hmm.
suppose we ask the question, what is the probability, given that theory, that our senses were shaped by natural selection to show us true properties of objective reality? What is that probability according to the theory? And the answer is the probability is zero.
Very, yeah, yeah. It would kind of be in the category of where you would expect it for something like chaos theory or something. It's not going to happen. It's like me taking apart my watch and putting it in a bag and then shaking it. And what's the probability that's going to come back as a watch if every piece has already been taken apart?
Right, and of course the rejoinder that evolutionary theorists would have to that kind of analogy would be to say that of course evolution isn't just about shaking the parts and so forth. That's a full on just random thing. There is this selection process that sort of cuts down the search space. But what I'm saying is even if you get rid of the just complete random thing and take full evolutionary game theory, the modern mathematical theory of evolution by natural selection, and use that and ask what is the probability that any sensory system would be shaped to see any aspect of objective reality correctly, truly? The probability is precisely zero, and and so that, and I should say a little bit about why it is the case, but to first answer your question, that suggests to me that what evolutionary theory says on its face, which is evolutions shape sensory systems to guide adaptive behavior. That's what evolution says. And I completely agree with evolution that it does, the mathematics does do that. It shapes sensory systems to guide adaptive behavior, to keep you alive long enough to reproduce. That's
Hmm.
what I mean by adaptive behavior. So it does that. And that has nothing to do with seeing the truth. That just has something to do with guiding adaptive behavior, period. And seeing the truth is something entirely different. And so, in that sense, what evolution has shaped us with is a user interface that hides the
Ah,
truth. So that's in that sense. Now I would say yes, I agree with you. It's like a simulation in the same sense that when I'm playing like Grand Theft Auto, right?
hmm.
I'm interacting with a user interface that's very fun, but the red Porsche that I see in Grand Theft Auto is nothing like the reality I'm interacting with, which in this metaphor is some supercomputer that I'm interacting with. And there's no, if you look inside that supercomputer, you'll see circuits and software, but not a red Porsche anywhere inside that. And so what you're seeing in Grand Theft Auto is what you need to guide adaptive behavior in playing the game of Grand Theft Auto. That's what you see is what you need to play the game effectively. You're not seeing the truth, and that's what evolution also says: is you're seeing or perceiving what you need to play the game of life effectively, which is not the truth. You don't need to see the truth. In fact, the truth gets in the way. If you had to toggle voltages to play Grand Theft Auto, you would lose
Yeah,
to
yeah,
someone who
totally.
had the interface.
So this is interesting because there's a ton of philosophical questions and an avenue I could easily go down, but I'm going to resist going down that path yet. I'll wait till we get further in to the conversation because I definitely think there's a reason then, uh, if it is a simulation as we believe, I believe that, um, that we experience world in this duality context, and that probably the only way we can contextualize something. If I said, I want to know the length of, this part of my glasses right here, what does this length mean? It doesn't really mean anything unless I have some context to reference it against,
Right.
right? There has to be some context. Now, we just discovered something in mathematics just today, in fact, that might actually present a possible answer for that contextual reference to provide some dimensionality to that which should not have dimensionality. It's dimensionless,
Right.
right? So mathematical constants like pi, phi, Euler, all of those can be dimensionless. But there is a way we found to be able to construct around this that then it also implies this thing is so perfectly designed as a simulation construct. Who the hell did it? I mean, this person was a freaking genius, whoever it was, and is so far beyond any level of understanding that we can even comprehend right now. So I'll just tell you what we found. So if you take a circle, so there's a concept in geometry of a perfect polygon, right? So a perfect polygon in 2 dimensions, so think Euclidean plane. And for a perfect polygon to exist, it has to have a value that will be equal between its perimeter and its area. As a circle, it would be its circumference and its area. So you would say, but wait, what circle could do that? Well, there's only one circle that can do that in the 2nd dimension, and that is a circle with a radius of 2. A circle with a radius of 2 will have 4 pi as its circumference and area value. So it's equivalent, right? And so in mathematics, these are called equable polygons.
Okay.
Or in the case of the circle, it's just a circle, the equable circle. Have you ever heard of this before?
No.
Okay, so this is fascinating, because what we found is that if you place, in this part, I don't know that we can claim yet, we're doing research that we discovered this, but what we found is that if you put around that circle with 2, any polygon, the polygon that is exoscribed around that circle will have the same property infinitely.
Huh.
So I'll give you an example. So if the radius is 2, then the diameter would be 4, right?
Okay.
So the square that goes around it would be a 4 by 4 square.
Okay.
4 times 4 is going to give us the area.
Right.
And, that's also going to be 4 times 4 sides is going to give us exactly 16. So they've shared the same property. Now, we found that this is true for the pentagon, for the hexagon, all the way up. It doesn't matter what polygon you put around that circle. It will always have this property where its area will be exactly equal to its perimeter value. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought in these terms before, so that's surprising. But again, I'm not a mathematician in this area, so I don't know. I mean, that my lack of surprise may just be my mathematical ignorance. So,
well, here's the other part of it that's even fascinating, more fascinating, I think. It doesn't only apply to polygons infinitely; it applies to all polytopes. So now let's put it in 3 dimension. The only thing is that to go into the 3rd dimension, the radius now of that circle that you started with becomes a sphere.
Right.
And the radius now goes to 3.
Right.
And when you use a radius of 3 for the sphere, what becomes equal is the surface area becomes exactly equal to the volume.
Huh.
And this happens with all polytopes infinitely as well, which is like all regular polytopes, so polyhedra, will have the exact same property. So if I put an icosahedron or I put a cube, right? So for example, if we're going to use the number 3, right? So let's make it a cube.
Right.
So then you have a side length of 6, right? So 6 to the 3rd power would give you the volume of the cube.
Right.
And then the surface area would be for each side, right? You've got 36 times 6, which is also 216, which is equal to 6 to the 3rd power.
Huh.
And this works for everything. Dodecahedra, icosahedra, it works on every single possible polyhedra infinitely. We're writing a paper on this right now.
Pretty cool. That's a very fascinating mathematical fact. That's really interesting.
So this, and as you go higher dimension, this is why I'm saying the plan behind this is so freaking genius, Don. When you see this, you're going to be like, what the hell? It's so perfectly planned that even the way we categorize the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th dimension, that's simply a lengthening of that sphere. So in the 4th dimension, it would be a hypersphere, right? And all the math is perfectly informed. So then it's no longer so in the first instance, in the 2nd dimension, it was the area was equal to the perimeter, right? In the 3rd dimension, it was the volume was equal to the surface area, right? In the 4th dimension, it's the volume is equal to hypervolume.
Right. Right.
Okay. And it just keeps moving up to the next two. It recategorizes itself all the way through, and it works for all dimensions.
That's right. So it's the dimension, and then the first the next dimension down
Yes.
that are related.
Yeah. So it's so then when I look at this, I'm like, oh my gosh, how could we even consider that entropy even exists?